Hello. In this recording of our Justia webinar, Wellness Wake Up Call Honest Advice for Lawyers, Lynn S. Garson discusses the importance of self awareness while providing tools and knowledge to integrate wellness into your professional and personal life as a lawyer. Remember, if you'd like to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Hi, everybody. I am so glad to be talking with you today. I want to introduce this just very briefly. Excuse me. What does wellness for lawyers mean? Does anybody have any idea at this point? Is it diet and nutrition? Is it your lawyer assistance program? It's so hard to know now, and there's wellness light, yoga, good nutrition, and there's wellness not light for crises and everything in between. What I want to do is to highlight what's really out there, because a lot of what's said to be out there isn't really, and how to navigate the tools that are out there, because there are some, and there's some very good ones. This is my information, and when I say all calls welcome, I 100% mean it. Email is fine as well, but I gave a talk the other day. A mother called me. It was not in the law firm context, and I'm happy with that. So please do call if you have any questions, or if you want any further information, or if you want to pick my brain or anything. So here's our agenda. Confusing narratives, yeah. Reality check, advocating for yourself, which I think you're going to be surprised by, and resources. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, because why would you listen to me? Yes, I've given talks. That doesn't tell you anything. I had a very bright partner here tell me, why don't you do a bifurcated slide where you show on one side the mask that you wore all the time, and you show on the other side what was really going on behind the curtain. So you see on the left, behind the mask, I'm just cranking, associate, counsel, moving along, practicing law, got married, had children, bang, bang, bang. On the right side, I have had depression since I was 16. I have had an eating disorder, binge eating disorder, since I was much younger than that. I was aware of it maybe 6 years old, and I'm not kidding, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. People don't talk about that a lot. I had a no-talk family, so everything was, you couldn't talk about it. I began therapy at 29. Ongoing, I was in therapy for 40 years. My therapist cut me loose a year and a half ago, which I was very surprised at, but I have gotten to the point where I can manage my issues and remain stable. And if not, I know who to call. So for many years, I cycled between depression and massive weight gain, and stability and massive weight loss. Went on and on and on. Continued to struggle. In 2007, I got divorced. Well, actually, before that, I got divorced, but in 2007, some things about that really hit me hard, and I went down like a stone. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't breathe. I would lie down. I can feel it, I can see it. I would lie down on the office floor, and we did not have locks on the floor. This was in Virginia at a health system. So I would put my feet to the door so nobody could walk in on me, and I would lie there and I would just try to breathe. And this started in November, and there was no quarter given ever. In December, like at the end of the year, I closed 2 deals. So that's what we do. We push ourselves. We don't say no to anybody but ourselves, right? To my detriment. After 6 months of that, luckily my brother saw what was going on, and I told him that I was unwell, to put it mildly. And my family helped me go to Shepherd Pratt, which is a very fine facility in Baltimore. And here are my diagnoses: major clinical depression, generalized anxiety disorder. They called it catastrophic anxiety, bipolar 1, panic disorder, complex PTSD, and binge eating disorder. So I was unwell, and 10 weeks was nothing close to what I needed to get even close to ground level to start working to become stable. I did not listen to what they said after 3 weeks, which is that my prognosis was fair to good with ongoing intensive treatment. That meant therapy 3 to 4 days a week, and I laughed at them. I have a work to get back to, I have my life to get back to. Fix me. Well, a year, 14 months later, I was in another facility in Georgia because I didn't listen to anything they told me at Shepherd Pratt. And it was completely different. It was getaway cart drivers and people with tracks on their arms and dealers and me. Uh, and it was quite the experience. But after I got out of there, I did pay attention to what they had said there and at Shepherd Pratt, and I really started going to therapy and working very hard. I have written 2 articles I want you to know about. Everything I know about suicide is not just about suicide. I think it's worth reading. And the language of asking for help is a realistic look at how do you ask for help, because you can't ask just anyone. That happens to be true, unfortunately. If you can't access those online, just email me and I'll get them to you in PDF. All right, so that's me. I've had the journey. I have been stable for a while now. I know what I need to do for myself. And I think I'll say later on in the presentation, my mental health is non negotiable. It comes before everything. And for me, obviously, that's based on my experiences. Okay, confusing narratives. This is what I hear and have heard in firms and corporate in-house all over the place. We want you to be happy and productive. We understand that you need a good work-life balance. We need to give you leeway to do certain things. We want you to go get help if you need it, and on and on and on. None of that's true. I mean, sure, they'd love you to be happy and productive as long as you're doing the work first and all the work and responding to the client immediately or sooner. Um, and I said this the first time I gave this talk, which is not long ago. Did I really shift to looking at it this way? And I was angry. I was upset with the status quo at the firms and the institutions. And then, 10 days ago, I went to a suicide awareness and prevention committee meeting at the Georgia Bar. I'm on that committee. And we were told that we had lost 2 judges to suicide in the 90 days preceding that meeting, and there had been numerous attorney attempts. And that rocked me. That set me back on my heels, and it made me think. And for the first time, I really pulled my lens way out, and I said, "Wait a minute. How are we expecting law firms and in-house and law schools and government law, how are we expecting them to take care of this problem? This is a huge problem. We're not trained as clinicians." Look, I was around in the early 80s when lawyers had to start becoming business people. We were lousy at that. Now we're supposed to be clinicians too? I think we're barking up the wrong tree with what we expect. I do think that there are things that could be expected, and I would take all of my energy, if you've got any way to make an impact on this, and get your organization to focus on destigmatizing the idea of getting help. Put up your lawyer assistance program information next to the EEOC stuff. Paper the hallways with it. Have somebody at the top talk about the work that they've had to do to maintain their balance. Nobody cares what an associate says. They care what a senior partner says. And I'm sorry I talk in law firm language. That's been pretty much of my life, but you get the idea. And the other thing is once you open the door, point people in the right direction. What do you have as a resource? Well, all of the larger firms have employee assistance programs, and every state has a lawyer assistance program, and there are other resources in every state. So what I think the firms can do is open the door, tell you it's okay to walk through it, give you the resources that they should know about. I'm not asking institutions to go out and find who's a good facility to go for rehab in the state of Illinois, but what you're supposed to know about, tell people about. And that's it. Don't expect these people to handle this problem. 1 out of 20, or I guess 25 sometimes I hear, but let's be generous, say 1 out of 20 people in the United States, according to the National Institute of Health, recent statistics, will suffer from a mental health problem in any year. And this has been the statistic for a long time. 1 in 16 people will suffer from a serious mental health issue. Do you know 16 people? You're probably in an office that has more than 16 people. It's a lot of people. We can't be expected to put the finger in that dike. But there are things that we can do. And just in case you're wondering, I'm not saying nobody can help. I'll talk later about who I believe can help. In short, I believe it's the general population. If 75% or 80% is going to have a problem, well, sorry, 20 to 25%, the other 75 or 80, not all of them, but some of them can help. So I'll talk about that later. Oh, here's another thing that confusing narrative. This is on the little flyer from the Georgia Lawyer Assistance Program, and I called them out on it. This is what they hand out to everybody. To a daily schedule that includes exercise, relaxation, and most importantly, leaving work at a reasonable time. Really? And I'm not even going to dwell on it. You get the point. I want you to know, in terms of being confused about information that's out there are some very widely held misconceptions about recovery. And you notice I spend a great deal of time talking about more serious issues, not if you're upset because you missed your yoga class. I'm not meaning to be flip, but I sort of spend time where I think people really, really need help. Burnout, maximal stress, mental health issues, addiction issues. But I'll talk about the other. Everybody's entitled to help. But this is geared towards something a little bit more serious. This slide is. Recovery is not linear. I used to think you took off in the airplane, you went up, going up was a heavy lift, and then you leveled off and you sailed off into the sunset. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I'll talk about me. I backslid. I moved forward. It can be looked at as a spiral. I came up to the top of the spiral, then I spiraled halfway down, then up a little, then all the way down, then up. It takes, it takes that. This is not a linear process. And under the next bullet point, nor is it quick. The idea that I thought Shepard Pratt could fix me in 10 weeks makes no sense at all. I think I went there, let's call it 50 years old. I don't remember exactly how old I was. So if I'm saying I had binge eating disorder from very young, 6 years old, call it 5 to make it easy, that's 45 years of developing issues. 10 weeks to fix that and snap your fingers and, yep, stick her back, she's fine. No, that's not how that works. The concept of an expert in this field is tricky. I thought the folks at Shepard Pratt were the experts and they should fix me. Well, They are experts. I will say that in that facility, and I felt that they were good at their job. There are a lot of people in this field, like in any field or endeavor, who are not particularly good at their job. And in this arena in particular, it's an art and not a science for the most part. Makes it a little more difficult. And there's the added factor, the therapist can be the greatest therapist in the world. If you don't click, it's not going to work. And that's nobody's fault. It's just chemistry. And you go on and you look for the next person. And again, fix is the wrong lens to use here. It implies that you're handing the responsibility for taking care of this to somebody else. That is not true. I did not begin to recover until I took personal responsibility for my recovery. Every step of the way, I knew that people could help me, but it was up to me and nobody else. And that took me decades because I was afraid that I couldn't do it. And if I couldn't do it and they couldn't do it, that left me nowhere. I did get to the point where I could do it. Took a long time. Reality check. And I've partly given a reality check as we've been talking. This I love that they said at Shepherd Pratt. You can argue with reality and you will lose, but only 100% of the time. It's true. And what I'm really talking about there is not being in denial and accepting yourself wherever you are, because the work can't start as long as a person is in denial. You're not even started. I'm not even starting. So to be able to look at reality is the first step. All right, here's the thing that you probably will be surprised at. The cavalry may not be coming. Be your own advocate. And I understand that there are people that can't get out of bed. You can't be your own advocate. Find somebody else who can be. But as I was saying before about firms and institutions, I don't think the cavalry's coming. I mean, sometimes they do, and I hope it happens for you, and that would be great. In the 12 or 13 years I've been doing this, the cavalry's not coming. Even if they've got the best of intentions, they're not. You need to understand what it means to advocate for yourself. Okay, what does be your own advocate mean? The bad news, as I mentioned before, nobody can do this work but you. Nobody can reduce your stress level. Nobody can walk you back off the ledge. Nobody but you. They can help, but nobody can do this but you. The good news is nobody but you knows what you can do. You don't always have to listen when somebody, even that you think is an expert, tells you what you need to do to make your life better, especially if you know yourself and you've got grit and determination, because it takes that. My story is that at the second institution I went to, mental health facility, after I didn't listen to the folks at Shepherd Pratt, when we had a family meeting, which was my brother and my cousin and me, the director, that was my therapist, the director of the facility, the medical director, said she needs to apply for Social Security disability. She will never work again. That was a very hard thing to hear. But I believe in my experts. Like I said, I've sort of been taught to think that way. So I did apply for Social Security disability. It was one of the hardest things I have ever done to push the send button on that. But at the same time, I was applying for jobs and I got a job, I think 6 months later, maybe. And those are the folks that I still work with. We're not at the same firm, but it's the people. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I got a job as a contract lawyer, and I did that for 10 or 11 months. Then I got hired on a permanent basis by a different firm, and those are the folks that I'm with. That man told me I'd never work again. I didn't listen to him because that's not the vision I had for myself, and I wasn't going to sit still for it. That's self-determination. That's being your own advocate. So becoming self-aware so that you can advocate for yourself. Like I said, being out of denial and accepting reality, step number one. Number two is becoming self-aware so you know what's going on so that you can figure out what to do, how to address it, how to advocate for yourself. I don't have a slide in here for this, but I thought, I've been doing this for years, and every single time I'll look at what I'm saying and I'll say, you didn't drill down far enough because I'm telling people to be self-aware. I didn't say how. I just said become self-aware. That's not easy. It took me years, but there are things that I came to understand that now help me. There are guideposts that can help you. Physical symptoms, for example, can be a pointer, a red flag. Hard to breathe, like I couldn't breathe before. That was stress. Why was I stressed? Then I asked the question, get curious about it. Not afraid. For years, I was afraid to ask the questions, and I hid from it because, like I said, I didn't think I could deal with the answers. But once I became curious and was like, okay, let the chips fall where they may, that's the next step. What does that mean? And then the next step is doing that enough to learn yourself what your reactions are and how to interpret them. I gave you an example of a physical red flag. There are also emotional red flags. There's an expression that I love called the little kid. Sorry, I want you to hear this. The little kid is driving the bus. That is, for example, when I do something, I get angry, for example, and in my brain, I'm saying, why did I do that? I don't understand. I didn't really mean it, but it came out with such force, disproportionate to the situation. Somebody else is driving the bus. It's not Lynn in 2025. It's some other part of my life that has not been addressed, and I will keep reacting in that scenario the same way. I can guarantee that until I figure out, oh, that's why. And then, then once you have awareness, you just start to break the habits, which is also not easy, but you know what you've got to do. So that's Lynn's concept of how to become self-aware. Again, happy to talk to anybody about it more if they want to. So this is a very important slide. This is a type of awareness. Where are you on this well-being continuum? I didn't make this up. A brilliant lawyer in this space gave this to me, and it's the bomb because it gives us a framework. If you're all the way on the left, great. You're doing prevention. You're taking care of yourself. You're doing your yoga. You're doing your exercise. You're doing your good nutrition. You're doing sleep hygiene to stay over there. That's the goal, is to stay over there. Witness my story. We can't all always stay over there. I was actually further than the gray, but let's call it the gray. And that is when either burnout, stress, diagnosable mental health issue, whatever you want to call it, I couldn't help myself. I needed outside support. All the way to the right is suicidal ideation, and that's straight to call 911 or the new 988 number to try to get help. And if you're with the person, stay with them. I talk about that a little bit more. Key that this other lawyer wrote is recognize each stage and act accordingly. Self-help strategies that are great for wellness, like yoga, don't work when we need support. I had somebody once say to me it's a slide down the road here, but it was about addressing stress. And she said, well, yeah, that doesn't really work when you're having, what do you call it? When you can't breathe, a panic attack. And I'm like, bingo, she's right. So if you're having a panic attack, yoga's not going to help you. So, understand that and understand this because this is in most lawyers. The propensity is to overuse self-help even when it's no longer appropriate, because after all, we're fine. We're in the business of taking care of other people. We're not in the business of taking care of ourselves. So we need to pay attention and not be in denial. If we're moving towards the right, then get the help, get the intervention. This is just talks about wellness. You can come look at this on your own. It's all the things that you've heard over and over and over. Mental health support, the intervention. So I used to blithely go get help. Well, there are choices that have to be made by a lot of people. I'm on the end of my life where my children are grown. I don't have financial responsibility for them anymore. I don't have aging parents anymore. So if I wanted to go and get help, I could do it right now. But not everybody can do that. A single parent raising children, it's not a no-brainer to walk out the door and say, well, I've got somebody who's going to help with my practice and I'm going to go, for 10 weeks like I did. No. So there has to be careful thought and choices do have to be made. Financial ability. I was lucky that my family could afford Shepherd Pratt. There are places to go, and you can call me. I have the ability to call people who are clinical in this area, not just in Georgia, but in various places in the country. And they have helped me before find places that are all along the spectrum of what it costs to go. Larger firms' employee assistant programs, lawyer assistance programs, I'll talk about later. In case I forget, I'm going to say right now, both of those programs are vastly underutilized. Vastly. They're out there. They're not being used a lot. Trusted person or a mentor, counseling or therapy. I believe in peer support. I believe it's going to have to be the model because we don't have enough people to be therapists or to have rehab facilities. We just don't. Or government funding or nothing. We won't, that we can't. The problem's too large. So, like I said, I think we're going to have to help each other. There are programs that do experiential therapy, which helps get in touch with who's driving the bus. I've been to one called On Site in Tennessee. The same gentleman who gave me the wellness spectrum recommended the Hoffman process. So, I'd take anything he says to the bank. There are rehab facilities, often dual diagnosis. There's all kinds of inpatient, outpatient facilities. So that's just, to give you a little bit of a list there. Suicidal ideation. I don't know if you knew that you can text for that. 988 is the new national crisis hotline. It's feeds to each state and puts you in touch with somebody in your state. I understand that it's working pretty well. 911 is still available. If you have more interest in this, I give you some educational alternatives and happy to talk about them. I've got a lot at the end about suicide because the slides were given to me by a lawyer who the firm lost someone to suicide, and the slides are very good, and I give them to you, just passing them along. Stress versus burnout. I include this because I respect the person who prepared this slide. When they say stress can be positive or negative, I don't define stress in any way as a positive. I've got different words for what motivates me to do things, but I don't call it stress. Stress and burnout are two different things. Burnout, I will tell you very quickly in my article about the language of asking for help. I suggest that one way to do it is go in and say you're burned out, because you're a hero if you're burned out. You're not a hero if you've got major clinical depression. I can't help that. We're not doing a good job of destigmatizing these issues in this country and in this culture, but burnout all day long. That's my perception, at least. Um, Identifying physical distress. I talked about red flags, having trouble breathing, a pulse, beating really fast, things like that. And it was explained to me by someone medical, and it makes perfect sense, really helped me, that there's biology to this. What it is when you are confronted with something that causes maximal anxiety slash fear, you're back saber-toothed tiger days, and it's your instinct that kicks in. We all know that. And what happens is your prefrontal cortex goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that's meant for a duration of minutes. We went through COVID, and a lot of people endured that for years. Nobody knows yet what that cortisol dump has done to folks. I can't begin to say. But it's meant for minutes, and it is a cortisol dump. And what happens is that part of your brain borrows from your intellect to find the nearest tree, find the nearest cave. Maybe you've got a club. You're not going to really have much success with the saber-toothed tiger, but maybe it's something else. Um, and that is why we sometimes, when we're burned out and overwhelmed, everything becomes foggy. It can't concentrate. That's literally physically why. I loved understanding that. I thought that was very interesting. So that's a red flag in and of itself. If you're feeling, well, often at work when I'm feeling that much stress, I don't need to do much to have the awareness of why. It's the project I'm working on. But at least I understand where the fogginess comes from. Um, a lot of people always want to know, how do you identify mental distress? And I say changes in behavior more than anything. You can go down this list. There are a million lists out there. If somebody is usually immaculate and they start coming in with food stains on their clothing for every day for 2 weeks, something's wrong. If somebody is used to being the life of the party, sure, I'll go to lunch. Well, yeah, let me get my jacket. And all of a sudden they're isolating. No, I think I'll stay in my office. That's a flag. There's something going on. There are stresses. I use this slide saying specific to lawyers. I will say they are specific to type A personalities. Um, Perfectionism. How many of us either have that in this moment or have had to address it? I used to be a perfectionist. I have addressed it. Now, you put that together with the time constraints we're under, could it be more stressful? We wear the mask, like I talked about at the beginning. Nobody in my office knew there was anything wrong with me. They didn't know I was lying down on the floor, that I was that unwell. I wore the mask. Over identification with the job happens with a lot of lawyers. It's the ego versus I did X and it didn't work. I failed this time. I'll try something else next time. Versus I am a failure. And that's poison in your system. And that will begin to corrode your mental health and your emotional health. Imposter syndrome, I think most younger lawyers go through it. Some lawyers continue to go through it. That's that, the client's going to pull back the curtain and see that it's the wizard is just this guy pulling a bunch of levers. Like, I don't know, why are they asking me? Suicide warning signs. Two things I want you to know. Focus on the black bold. I know people who have lost people to suicide, and this is exactly what happened. A sudden swing from hopeless to carefree. Doesn't mean everything's fine. It means in many cases, they've got a plan. They've made a plan and they're at peace. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can see the end of their suffering. Giving away treasured possessions. That makes sense, but just to let you focus on those. And the others are wanting to feel hopeless, that kind of thing. Those you would know. And like I said, there are notes at the end of the PowerPoint. Okay, resources. And my watch is off and I don't know the time, so I'm going to really try to blow through this because I generally do not get through all the slides. As I said, you're your first and best resource for reducing stress, combating burnout, and dealing with any other issue. Here's how you break what I call habits, because we want to make it more than it is, more dramatic. A lot of the stress is habit. My clients they don't expect me to answer the email in 12 seconds. They'll say so if they do. It's rare. I put that burden on me. It's a habit. Dare I say, it's practically an addiction. It is something that I work on and I'm aware of, and I'm not all that successful at it. So, awareness, well, I sort of flipped them, but acceptance, there's something going on. Awareness, prioritization. Am I willing to do this work? I mean, a lot of people will say, I'm working on the deal. I just have to park my issues down the road. I don't know what to tell you. My mental health is non negotiable. If it's that bad, I would encourage the person to get help. Self-discipline, and that is where I break down. I have to do what I need to do to address my habit. I need to push the chair back and get up. I am not always successful. I need to do it time after time after time to build a new habit and break the old feedback loop. Still working on it. Personal prevention / maintenance plan, obviously personal, custom for you. And I probably should have put this at the top, but stigma. Am I willing to ask for help if I need it, or am I going to let the stigma make me keep quiet? I hope not. Nothing is worth not getting the help. I believe that. I truly believe that. But a lot of people will tell themselves the story that I can't, XYZ can't know. Call me. I'm happy to talk through that. Overcoming perfection. I'll let you read this. I've got a slide. I guess the only thing I want to say, I did like this. Give yourself permission to be less than 100% affected by triaging. Missing a period is not the same as getting the purchase price wrong. And I'm telling you the truth. I don't care if I miss a period, if it's obvious that the period should be there. I mean, if it's a critical period, yes, but generally it's not. If it's the big ticket item, I care, but I'm not going to stress myself over every detail. That will help. There is a woman named Jordana Confino. She used to teach at Fordham, and she's a coach about getting over perfectionism. I highly recommend her. I believe that in our environment, the best we can do is address stress at a granular level and break it down into minutes. We can't always take an hour and go exercise or do a meditation practice. We can get up and do 2 minutes of breathing, 3 minutes on a meditation app, anything to break the stress cycle, anything to stop the cortisol dump. And this is evidence-based. I went looking for the evidence. I knew this to be true. And I went looking for the evidence, and lo and behold, it was there. I will say when you do get overwhelmed and the confusion takes over and the fogginess, stop. You're not doing good work at that point. Don't push through. I don't think you're doing your client or yourself a service. Take at least a few minutes, and I'm gonna tell you what works for me, in a minute. Have a personal prevention plan and understand what that is for you. You can come back to that slide. My personal ritual when I get overwhelmed, I stop in my tracks. I am aware, like I said, that I'm no longer effective at my job. I will make a to-do list in order of priority, and whatever I was doing before, I ignore it, and I take the easiest thing on the list and I do it. Because it's almost a loss of confidence as well. It's like, God, I should know this. And so I regain my confidence. If at all possible, I wait until the next day to pick up the project that was completely overwhelming. I'm telling you, 100 out of 100 times, I wonder why I couldn't do it. I know how to do it. I will tell you, if I can't wait, and I did this at the beginning of COVID because it really stressed me out. One of my triggers is feeling trapped. Put your head under incredibly cold water for as long as you can stand it, to the point where it literally, I don't know what it does physically. I'm sure somebody can, look this up, but it snaps something back. It gets rid of the cortisol somehow. It's miserable. Be smart about self-care, and I'll let you come back to this slide because I really do. I don't want to get out of time. Um, what I say at the bottom, build relationships. And I don't know who the group here, and I don't know if I'm addressing any younger lawyers. This is something that you will learn if you're a younger lawyer. Build relationships. It is the only way you will get grace from the client or from the partner that you work with, or whoever, the business side, if you're in-house. I have had that work on my behalf where I messed something up. This is 5 years ago, maybe. I thought it was really bad. I was really upset. And I went to the client, and the client told me, "Don't worry about it. It's not that bad. It's only a couple of contracts. We'll take care of it." I earned that by building those relationships. And it really, you know, it turned out to be very beneficial. It's a good thing to do, obviously, no matter what, but I'm saying it's also a matter of self-care. Outside resources. I've got some points of light. They're not all on here. I'm gonna blow through these. Dr. Devi in New York she will come give a talk for free about menopause and what that does for women of a certain age, and what additional things they have to deal with. If you're interested in that, contact her. She's wonderful. I said Jordana Confino. Karen has multiple locations. They will do assessment, and they're a treatment center. There, I talked to them about referrals in various states. Patrick Krill, father of wellness in the legal profession. He's done many, many studies. You can take his studies to the bank. He is also the father of the ABA Wellbeing Pledge, if you've heard of that. Lisa Factor is somebody I happen to know that is a great experiential therapist. Plum and Rusev is the person I talked about who put together that wellness spectrum. He is also a great breathwork teacher and other things. Skip the next one. On site, I've talked about Hoffman process. That's a link. People who know have told me this about Betty Ford Hazelden, where to go, and only certain places. Faith-based program, I've got every slide that these people gave me in here because I want you to have it. When I say the cavalry's not coming, this is the only place I can see the cavalry coming. And there is Peachtree Road United Methodist Church in Atlanta has put together a mental health program that they will share with anybody. They will talk to anybody. You can see the links. If they're not live links, just type them in. Um, all I can tell you is it's amazing. I do believe that religious institutions are well positioned to do this work. And in my book, it's actually part of their brief. Sometimes I've tried to talk to different organizations, and they're human like anybody else. They like the things they're already doing. They think they're doing it. Um, all I can say is I'm going to blow through these slides, but you've got them. Happy to talk to you about it. Happy to put you in touch with them, or you can get in touch yourself if you're interested in this. And like I said, we're going to go through a lot of slides. Okay, lawyer assistance programs. They're in every state. American Bar Association lists them by state. The ABA also has extensive links about all kinds of support. The EAPs and LAPs are overloaded for in-person therapy. For virtual, for telemental health, they're okay. I've talked to somebody I know who is the head of an EAP. So they manage several EAPs, and he's pretty in touch with what's going on around the country. And he has said that EAPs, they're good, and LAPs as well, but not if you want to go in person. And I can tell you, my daughter lives in New York City. She went a year and a half looking for an in-person therapist, found one, they didn't get along, and she's finally found another one. Fine. Or actually, I think I'm wrong. I think she finally threw in the towel and she's doing it virtually. But yeah, doing it in person. And anecdotally, I will tell you, I'm not chair of the Lawyer Assistance Committee in Georgia anymore. I was for like 5 years. I just stopped. When we went through COVID and everything became virtual, we have a number of lay therapists on the Georgia Lawyer Assistance Committee. And I asked them, what do you think about virtual? And to a person, they said, I was all set to say that virtual is not as good as in person. And I'm going to eat my words because it's great. And I don't feel like I'm losing anything. So that's three people's opinion about telemental health, but good to know. Pure volunteer programs. We have the only one in the state of Georgia have the only one that is online. It's an online matching system. We are having the devil of a time getting people to use it. Not volunteers who want to help people, but people who are willing to take the risk, which they feel is a big risk. It's not. But we can say till we're blue in the face that it's confidential. People are not willing to believe that. I tried to put together a national peer program where somebody in California could get in touch with somebody in Maine. I think it's an idea whose time has come. I hope there's somebody on this call that is good at putting working groups together, and we'll do that. I will be happy to help, but I'm not going to spearhead it again. Other resources. BetterHelp has an excellent global list of resources. You see the other things I've got. I know the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance to be good and to have support meetings as well. I will tell you, the Lawyer Depression Project in New York, which the name was a misnomer. They held peer meetings for anything. It didn't have to be depression. And they were wonderful, and the meetings were mediated, and they're dissolving. And that, beyond anything, tells me that the legal, as an institution, as an industry, we can't do it. If they have to dissolve, if they couldn't do it with all the goodwill and a lot of years under their belt, I mean, I'm thinking 10 years under their belt, I just don't know that we can really do it. Now, within a community, there can be 12-step lawyer-focused meetings. We've had that in Georgia before, or in the Atlanta area. That's up to the local people to put together. I will tell you, that link under the Lawyer Depression Project, not notime.com, but the Lawyer Depression Project mental health resources, I have never seen a list of resources like this. It is the most comprehensive list of resources. Clinical folks have agreed with me on that. Take a look at that. Apps, wonderful. A lot of them are very good. Clubhouse, you have to be careful if anybody even uses that anymore. They have a lot of mental health meetings. You have to be real careful. The Dinner Party, it's thedinnerparty.com, is a grief and loss support group that I have been told is very good. Medication. I didn't used to talk about this, and now I've decided in the last several talks that it's okay for me to address this because I'm middle of the road. I'm not going to say anything extreme about it. I will say that it frequently, almost always, should be used in conjunction with talk therapy. I was shocked not to find a lot of articles that said that. I found one which has an OCD focus, but it's a great article. It actually makes me a little suspicious of some folks that there aren't more articles out there like that, but we'll leave that to the side. Always ask what the withdrawal is. I withdrew from Klonopin, and a friend of mine just coincidentally, and lives in Ohio, did at the same time. It took me 6 months, and I cut that thing into until it was dust, and it was hard, but I only had a couple of twitchy, sleepless nights. She had heroin withdrawal, and I was warned by my doctor that it can be that bad, and it was that bad for her. Always ask what the withdrawal is like. I will say, I'm gonna say, generally, there's no magic bullet. I waited for it for 29 years. There was no magic bullet. For me, there was no bullet at all. There's a concept that most psychiatrists and most clinical folks, or a lot of them, don't subscribe to, that I didn't have a chemical imbalance. I had a difficult upbringing, and the tree grew up bent, and it took a lot of work to straighten the tree out. Or I used to think of the image, there was a lot of ivy choking the tree, and it took a long time. Couldn't just cut the ivy. It was like blood vessels. You had to unwrap it carefully, and it took a long time. Not the first medication helped me on anything more than a 2 or 3 month basis. Um, a friend told me that I said this to her and she really liked it, so I'll pass it along, that sometimes the meds will calm the white noise enough so you can even look at what your issues are and try to become self-aware, because if the white noise is too loud, you can't get in there. ABA Wellbeing Pledge, I'm assuming that many of you have heard of it. I will say right now, in my current mode of thinking that, the institutions, like, don't count on them for a lot of very complicated things. I will say that number 2 is easy to do. And I was shocked to find out, because I used to be on the ABA Wellbeing Pledge Committee, that as a group, we have tremendous issues with alcohol still, and a lot of functions are based around alcohol. So to disrupt the status quo of drinking-based events is a good thing. I'll let you read through the rest of it. You decide whether this is something your group would want to do. I will say the third thing that I would say law firms can do, but I think it's a heavy lift, and I don't know whether to even put this out there, is have a defined back to work policy and have a policy of who's going to take over somebody's work when they go out on leave, so that nobody's afraid. Now, there are people who will say, I can't go out on leave because I'll lose my clients. I can't help you, because if you really need to go out on leave, you need to go out. But I do think that organizations can help while you're gone and with the reentry I've not seen a lot of groups take that on. I wish they would. All right, this is a bunch of suicide predictors. Okay, I do want to talk to you about these takeaways, and this is what I really hope you will do. Start a one lamb program at your church, your synagogue, your mosque, your religious institution, your spiritual community, whatever it is. Bring a mental health first aid training to your organization. Organize a support group. Do something to contribute to the solution if you can. If you are listening to this and you're in the mode of needing the help, this is not something for you to take on right now. Be aware of where you fall on the wellness spectrum and act accordingly. Have a personal prevention plan. That's a good takeaway. This one, I'm glad I've got time to say it. It belongs elsewhere, and I just thought of it at the end. Um, Pay attention to people around you. This means your family, your colleagues, anybody. People who are struggling will often try to ask for help, but the question is subtle. It's not straightforward. I did this myself. My parents came to Virginia with my brother for my daughter's high school graduation in 2008 when I was at my sickest. And when they got into my minivan, mom's minivan, um, I said, and I quote, "I really shouldn't be driving this car." What I meant was, I am begging you to ask me why and let me tell you that I need help. But I wouldn't say it to this group outright because remember, I had a no talk family. I'd had experiences before saying I needed help and being met with either dead silence or I don't know what that means. So I was not going to do that, but I tried to ask. There was dead silence. Nobody answered. And I was angry about that for years until somebody said to me, they might have thought you had a hangover. I mean, they didn't ask, but, uh, fair enough. But just know that people will ask in subtle ways and be present and listen as much as you can. And if something sounds off, I mean, because I'll go back and say it was an odd statement. I really shouldn't be driving this car. Ask a question. And I don't even have it in here anymore, but it's well known now that asking a question is not going to are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you in trouble? Is not going to put the idea in somebody's head and give them the idea of self-harm. That's been debunked. Um, Another thing that is subtle is you might ask somebody if they need help and they might bite your head off. I've done that too. My ex-brother-in-law called me and said, "I'm worried about you and I think you need help." And I said, "I can do this with one arm tied behind my back and standing on one leg." I was awful. That's how scared I was. And I will say, not everybody wants to take this heat, but for me, if he had come back one or two times, I don't know how long, but I would have caved and I would have said, "Yes, I need help." But, you got to be willing to take that heat, and it is not pleasant. It can be that the person is ready to tip over, and this is just a violent, aggressive reaction before the tip. That's what it was for me. And thank you. That is it.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for all of your insights on mental health in the legal field. We really appreciate it. We can now go ahead and move on to questions. So as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Lynn, please be sure to submit them by clicking the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. It looks like we've already got a couple, so we can go ahead and dive right in. Our first one is from Cece. They ask, I know people who are afraid to get help because they think it might ruin their career. The stigma is persistent in our culture. How do you help someone get over that?
You're not wrong. that's my article about the language for asking for help. I recommend that article and then call me and I'll brainstorm in the particular situation. What One thing I say in general is find somebody you can trust. Don't go to somebody you can't trust. You're right. You're not wrong. We have done no job in this country in combating the stigma. People have tried. They have tried and tried. I don't know why we can't manage that. I have no idea. But we're terrible out about the stigma, and it's real, and somebody's job could be in jeopardy. And in fact, I've known situations where somebody went out and got help and they were maybe an associate, and when they came back, they no longer got the plum assignments. They got work that wasn't really going to advance them in their career. So that's another way of, the stigma affecting somebody's career that didn't lose their job, but they were not going to advance the way that they wanted to. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn. Our next question is, if I only have time to look into one of the resources that you recommend, what should it be?
You have to tell and put it in the chat. You have to tell me more about what the problem is, because is it, like, do you need an app to help you step away from the desk? I mean, do you need therapy? Yeah. So quickly, if you can, just, I mean, I'm here. Doesn't have to be quick for me, but if you could just put a couple of notes in there about what are we talking about?
Yeah. And if they wanted to have a longer conversation, can you just remind us of your email that they could send that to?
L Garson, GARS as in Susan, ON as in Nancy, and on my little screen there, at Baker, BAKER law, LAW.com. All obviously one word.
Okay.
And you can call me. Yes, you could call me. Yeah.
And I just sent that email in the chat if that is helpful for anyone. All right. And then our next question is, how would you recommend approaching someone like yourself who is trying to indicate that they needed help, but you weren't quite sure how to, say that out loud or in a specific way?
Be real, don't they, like I said, they may get upset with you. It is a risk on your part no matter how you approach it. Now, obviously, if you approach it in a harsh way, you're going to get a worse result. But to just go up and say, is everything okay? I'm happy to talk to you. I'm sort of getting the idea that maybe things aren't okay. And I've been there myself. This is the single best word I've ever heard in this context. The same guy that's the CEO of the EAPs that I talked about, he said, people want to feel joined. That is exactly the right word. So if you can join the person and say, I've been there. I have family who's been there. I'm just happy to talk. And, if you don't want to, know that I'm always available. And I will say one thing, and it sounds like you're not the person who will do this. Whatever they say to you, if you get them to talk, do not flinch. Because if somebody flinches when I start my kind of conversation, it's game over. Because I know they can't handle it. The only way somebody with me can recover from that is to say, hey, I know I blinked. I mean, my head was in a different space. I'm here for you. Please tell me. I want to know what you're talking about. And I'm here for you. That would be the recovery. But, whatever they're going to say to you, try to be prepared to just be open to hearing whatever it is. It might be shocking. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. This next person asks, what are some practical ways to integrate wellness strategies into my demanding legal schedule?
It's the small things. That's the only way I know. Whatever, and make it custom for you. If you don't like to meditate, I'm not a huge great meditator. Don't get a meditation app. Do something. There is evidence behind the idea, and the breathwork coach that I mentioned about, I've used him. 3 deep breaths works. I used to say, "Well, I can't do breath work. I can't meditate. You have to do it for half an hour." He was like, "Are you kidding?" And he's the only person who's ever said that to me, but he's right. No such thing. Just push yourself away, stand up. If it's a sunny day and you can walk out into the sunshine, always a good thing, is to disconnect your brain and your stress level from where it's at. If you can take 5 minutes, all to the good. Take 10, great. There are times when I take 3 deep breaths. That's it. I don't know if that's a full minute. Um, but I no longer judge myself or get mad at myself. Why didn't you do more? You're not a good breather. It's just that's all we can do because as you said, in the stressful work and days that we have, it just doesn't allow for somebody to put on, like I love to swim. Even if there was a pool in the building, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
If you do, then, I suspect you don't, or you wouldn't have asked the question, the way you did. But, for anybody who does, take advantage of it.
Thank you. Our next question is, what advice would you have for someone who's graduating from law school, hearing about what it's like out there, and feeling anxious? Thank you.
Okay. First of all, does your law school have resources for you? Because a lot of law schools are so on the side of the angels with this now. I mean, I've spoken at Tulane, which is my alma mater. They have the walls papered with how to get help, resources. They've had a program, the panel that I sat on, where they actually talked about how there shouldn't be grades in law school. And I was like, whoa, that's different. Uh, but so first check where you are and what you have. Um, in many states, and I am so sorry to say Georgia is not one of them, law students have access to the lawyer assistance program. And I don't think you have to have passed the bar. Oh, obviously, because you're not a law student anymore, you're a lawyer. So, law students very frequently have access. If you don't, even so, call the lawyer assistance, or get in touch with somebody, figure out how to call the lawyer assistance committee hotline and ask. Ask them for help. They will help you. I can tell you that. I can tell you in Georgia, they will help you. Um, Other resources for law students, gosh, there's JED, JED is one program that you should look at, and there's another one, I can't remember the name. If you'll email me, I'll figure it out. That was absolutely geared to law students and very, very good. Just can't remember the name right now. But Jed, I think was suicide based, but it's worth looking at to see what other referrals they've got.
Thank you, Lynn. I think that's all the questions that we have time for today, but I wanted to reiterate Lynn's email is in the chat if you'd like to contact her. And then you can also download the slides that have all those resources listed out if you log into your Justia Connect account and visit the webinar page, which I have also just placed in the chat. So that is there for you if that's helpful. We want to thank you all so much for joining another Justia webinar. Also, before you go, don't forget that Justia Connect Pro gives you access to CLE credit opportunities through select live and on-demand webinars, helping you stay informed and stay compliant. Plus, if you're a pro, you get additional benefits like an enhanced directory profile, access to the AI-powered Justia chat to boost your leads, and more. To learn more, you can go to pro.justia.com. Thank you all so much for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.